2 weeks ago, the Gordie Howe International Bridge reached a major milestone. The tower cranes were removed, a sign construction was almost over. But a new report suggests the bridge's opening could be delayed by 6 months. Our Veronica Ortega is getting answers.
According to the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority, work on the Gordie Howe International Bridge is progressing towards its completion of fall 2025, with only 2% of construction remaining. But when will the bridge be open to the public? That's unclear. I reached down to the WDBA for an interview over the phone. I was told no one was available to answer questions on camera this week, but a statement from Heather Grondin, the Chief Relations Officer for the agency, was provided. In it, she says, as with any major construction project at this stage, it's too early to offer a specific opening date for the Gordie Howe International Bridge.
All right, let's clear away the distractions and get right to it. The truth you're not hearing is actually very straightforward. Donald Trump recognized danger knocking at America's front door. He took action. That's the quick summary. While weak leaders were busy pleading for time and turning their heads, Trump refused. He slammed the door shut. This wasn't some political stunt. It was about shielding American jobs, protecting families, keeping communities secure, and making it clear to the world that the United States doesn't bow. That's real leadership. Trump stepped forward like a lion. That's the kind of strength this fight is all about. And before we dive deeper into this, let me quickly remind you, if you're watching right now, make sure you hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our updates. It helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you the stories others won't. Now, let's get back to the heart of it. The Gordie Howe International Bridge was sold as the crown jewel of cross-border trade, a flashy $5 billion project meant to link Detroit and Windsor. But Trump didn't fall for the ribbon-cutting hype. He looked at the situation for what it truly was. That bridge wasn't just a pathway for goods. It was a pathway for threats. Fentanyl pipelines, illegal crossings, cartel operations all flowed through that corridor. Trump made the tough call and shut it down. Critics howled about chaos, but regular Americans saw the reality. This wasn't about undermining Canada's ambitions. It was about safeguarding American lives.
This is the latest addition to the Gordie Howe International Bridge. Canadian and American flags now in place at the center of the span where the two bridge decks join. Officials with the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority tell CTV News this bridge is now 98% done. We are making progress towards our anticipated completion this year. Heather Grondin is quoted in a statement to CTV News. Grondin says, however, it's too early to pinpoint the day when traffic can flow across the $6.4 billion bridge. CTV News has also confirmed the CBSA handover started this past winter, allowing the border agency to install equipment. Officials with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, however, deferred our questions back to the Bridge Authority. Citing security implications, Grondin won't say whether or not CBP has been handed the keys to their port of entry building.
Even local reporters are beginning to acknowledge it. The so-called crown jewel bridge that Carney pinned his hopes on is already wobbling. The delays scream weakness, and his leadership has failed to move things forward. Without Trump stepping in, that project would have become just another wide-open entry point for traffickers. Instead, it's now a symbol of America, standing firm against outside forces dictating our security. Canada labeled it reckless. Trump called it necessary. And honestly, who do you think history will side with? That's not even up for debate. The fallout hit fast, and it hit hardest north of the border. Canadian factories in Ontario and Windsor ground to a sudden halt. Supply chains snapped like brittle twigs. Trucks that usually poured through border crossings sat motionless. Carney, after years of tying Canada's entire future to the U.S., suddenly had nothing but excuses. His immigration-first gamble is blowing up in his face. Workers are losing hours. Exports are sitting in warehouses. Families that depend on cross-border paychecks are scrambling. Trump didn't create the mess. Carney did by betting everything on the idea that America would never call him out. Trump simply showed Canada the cost of leaning too heavily on its neighbor while ignoring its own vulnerabilities. The lesson was plain: become self-sufficient before chasing supplemental deals. Build a stable foundation at home first. But no, Carney doubled down, lashing Canada's economy even tighter to America. That $5 billion bridge that was supposed to be his shining achievement, it's now looking like an overpriced mistake. A trophy project turned into a waste. Trump's move stripped the illusion away. He forced Canada to confront reality. You can't build lasting prosperity by leaning endlessly on another nation's goodwill. That support can vanish overnight, and it often does. You either learn to stand on your own feet, or you collapse when the crutch gets pulled away. And the truth is clear: Canada chose dependency, Trump chose strength. Let's be real. The real motivation behind Trump's call wasn't just economics. It was national security. For years, law enforcement has warned that the Detroit-Windsor corridor isn't merely a trade route. It's a funnel for fentanyl, human trafficking, weapons smuggling, cartel pipelines. Deadly drugs don't simply materialize in American neighborhoods. They cross borders, and too often, they come in through Canada. Weak enforcement, poor oversight, and a refusal to confront criminals have turned Canadian ports into soft targets. Trump saw the threat clearly. He read the writing on the wall. He refused to frame this as only a trade dispute. He made it plain that this was about survival. Shut the border. Leverage America's power. Stop pretending open borders don't come with deadly consequences.
The report indicates construction delays at both the Canadian and U.S. ports of entry facilities could postpone the bridge opening. So I sent emails to the Canada Border Services Agency and U.S. Customs and Border Protection. CBSA provided a limited response via email. It says handover of the building started in early 2025, with the CBSA receiving access to the facility to start its installation of equipment. CBSA employees have begun to occupy the port of entry buildings. The CBSA will be ready to provide services at the Canadian port of entry by the opening date. Meanwhile, U.S. Customs and Border Protection deferred my inquiry to the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority. WDBA's response outlined all of the work being done at the 13 structures at the U.S. port of entry, including interior work like desk and light fixture installation. Similar work is taking place at the 11 Canadian port of entry structures.
WDBA added that their priority for this project is quality and safety, and neither will be compromised. And they're committed to keeping us informed as they work toward the opening. And so will CBS News Detroit. I'm Veronica Ortega, getting answers.
And while Carney raged about trade, Trump focused on families. Families burying loved ones after overdoses. Children trapped in towns, poisoned by cartel drugs. Workers watching their neighborhoods decline. I've seen countless videos where Trump sat down with angel moms, with widows of military members, with families destroyed by crime. He met them, he listened, and even afterward, he stayed in touch. Those families always walked away impressed at his empathy. He wasn't just shaking hands for the cameras. He built relationships. Say what you want about his blunt style, yes. Sometimes he says things better left unsaid. But behind that tough exterior is a man who genuinely cares. He wasn't closing the border for optics. He did it because it was right, because he cared about those families. Critics can whine about lost toll money, but ask a parent who lost their child to fentanyl if they care about trade revenue. Trump made the only decision a real leader could. And then came Carney's public breakdown. Rather than preparing his nation for hard truths, he lashed out with angry press conferences, wagging fingers at Washington, insisting Trump was sabotaging Canada's economy. But let's be real here. Carney had years to fortify Canada's position, and he squandered them. He locked his country's future to America's and is now paying the price. He brushed aside repeated warnings about crime flowing through border points, and when the hammer finally came down, he had no backup plan. Here's what Carney tweeted: "We are building Canada strong. The federal government, provinces, and territories are making significant progress in building one Canadian economy. We are poised to build a series of major new projects in the national interest. We are strengthening our trade partnerships throughout the world." And there you have it, the classic political script. Spin dressed up as progress, but behind the polished words, closed factories, lost jobs, and excuses piling up. That's not leadership. That's desperation disguised as optimism. He called Trump reckless. But Canadians are beginning to see something different. They're seeing a leader more concerned with defending his own reputation than protecting his people. Meanwhile, Trump was focused on defending America. And it wasn't just about politics. As I mentioned earlier, he knew these families personally, parents who lost kids to drugs, spouses devastated by crime. Trump cared enough to act because he loves his country. That contrast says it all.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over. It's my solemn promise that when President Trump threatens us again, we will fight back. We will fight back with everything we have to get the best deal for Canada. We will build an independent future for our country, stronger than ever.
Carney was preoccupied with saving face, while Trump was protecting lives. One man shielded his people because it was right. The other pointed fingers when his own failures were exposed. The difference between strength and weakness has never been more obvious. Trump's decision didn't just highlight Canada's fragile economy. It underscored America's resilience. While factories in Windsor and Ontario stalled, plants in Michigan and Ohio were seeing the opposite, a president putting them first. For decades, American workers have complained about losing jobs to foreign competitors, about supply chains leaning too heavily on other nations. Trump's shutdown flipped that narrative overnight. It sent a message: those days are done. America isn't bending over backward to keep Canada content while its own workers suffer. And the narrative shifted instantly. Trump was portrayed as the defender of sovereignty. Carney looked like a man begging for scraps. The weaker Canada stumbled, the more confident America appeared. That contrast, American strength versus Canadian panic, was louder than any speech or press release. Trump's America stood tall. Carney's Canada looked shaken. Some branded it a trade war, others called it a crisis. But in reality, it was a wake-up call. Canada's dependence was like an addiction, and Trump forced them into withdrawal. By playing hardball, he proved what happens when you lean too much on your neighbor and ignore your own house. Canada retaliated with tariffs, paperwork, and fiery speeches, but none of it stacked up against the leverage America held. The U.S. is the buyer of the world, the biggest consumer market, Canada's primary customer. Carney's attempts at retaliation only exposed his desperation. Trump, on the other hand, didn't flinch. He knew America could outlast its neighbor in any economic showdown, and he was right. For every Canadian press release, there was an American paycheck saved. For every Canadian protest, there was an American parent reassured that their leader was standing firm after decades of bad deals. That's not chaos, that's strategy. At the core, this fight was never simply about tariffs. It was about sovereignty. Trump was proving America would not be a playground for traffickers or foreign politicians. While Carney floundered, Trump stood tall, willing to absorb criticism to defend security and history. It will draw the line clearly. One man will be remembered for wasting years and accomplishing nothing. The other, even in books written with bias, will still be seen as abrasive yet effective. A president who projected strength. Trump made America look unshakable while Canada stumbled. America wasn't sitting back. It was leading. Workers saw their neighborhoods prioritized. Families saw their leader draw boundaries. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Trump showed strength, Carney showed weakness. And that's the real story here. Canada leaned too heavily, ignored the warnings, and now is scrambling. Trump called their bluff. He forced them to face reality. America had the leverage, and he used it. That's leadership. So let's not mince words. This was never about pleasing Canada or boosting Carney's image. This was about protecting American lives and asserting sovereignty. Trump took the hard road because it was the right one. That's the difference between a leader willing to act and a politician hiding behind press releases. And that brings us to you, our viewers. If you value content that digs beneath the spin and tells the story others won't, then make sure you're part of this community. Hit that like button right now. Leave a comment with your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss what's coming next. Your support keeps this channel alive. And together we'll continue exposing the truth that others are afraid to tell. Trump projected strength. Carney projected weakness. America is moving forward while Canada struggles to catch its breath. And history will remember the difference. So, do me a favor, like this video, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Let's grow this community, spread the message, and keep standing strong together.